Hi, I'm your presenter Diane Grant, and today we'll be unlocking the archives of the British West Indies. Sorry, we don't have a lot of time for pleasantries, as this presentation is only 20 minutes long. So what will I be sharing with you? I'm going to delve into documents such as deeds, wills, inventories, manumissions, and East Indian registers. So buckle up, as we're nearly ready to land. Any guesses where we're heading first? On this trip, I've tried to use case studies to help direct me so I can direct you all within your research. My motto became, no information is still information. This is because, like you, I've sat in England wondering what documents are out there to help with my research. Yes, Family Search is the best friend of Caribbean researchers, but not everyone is able to access them without a local centre. Pro-genealogists tell researchers to start with what they know. Unfortunately, not being aware that you don't know the full story can lead to searching in the wrong location, which is what happened to me in Trinidad. However, I chose to take nothing as a fail on this trip. This research was looking not only at East Indian immigrants, but also Chinese immigrants. I have attached links for important online research aids, so I won't go into what the archive search aids state here. After emancipation in 1834, the colonies went through a period of apprenticeship for 4 years. Due to labour shortages, it was decided that Indian indentured servants would be brought to some islands between 1845 to 1917. The General Register starts with the first ship being the Fuzil Rizak, which arrived on the 30th of May 1845. The last ship to arrive in the colony was the Ganges, which arrived on the 22nd of April 1917. My friend did not know her grandfather, so I did not have access to ship information or parent information. Trying to look through the ship documents was not helpful either, as the names were not in alphabetical order. As the National Archives team say, whoever came off the ship first, that's the order of the book. The headings state number, name, father's name, age, height, caste, name of native place, date of indenture, and plantation to which allotted, etc. To fulfill further labour shortages, Chinese immigrants were brought to Trinidad from 1852 to 1866. They came directly from Hong Kong and other regions in China. As they were indentured, they were recorded in a register. Alexa's family, however, were indentured to Guyana and then migrated to Trinidad. There is no register for these persons, as they were just absorbed into society. I then went through birth records to help find her mother's birth to identify her mother's maternal line, which were her Chinese ancestors. The staff directed me to search the books for St. George, as I'd been informed that the family had a house and business on Arapita Avenue. I also searched through the birth records in the whole island books, but I was still unable to locate them. These documents were not in good condition, and sorry to say, Trinidad, they should be closed till they can be repaired. On my last day, I went to the Registrar General's department in Port of Spain. I could not buy certificates, but I was able to purchase search certificates for the garden search area. Here you can access the computers to try to locate families. They generally let you search for about 15 minutes on the computer, guided by their staff. On my final search, I was able to access the will of her grandfather. No pictures may be taken of the information. You have to either make notes or order a physical copy. The first thing that jumped at me on seeing the will was it said, late of the town of San Fernando. Those that know that San Fernando is not near Arapita Avenue or even in St. George. I had found them, but I had run out of time. So where are we going to next? Yep, we're going to my ancestral home. Now, if you haven't noticed, I am a black person. However, I have East Indian heritage on my maternal line, and on my paternal line, I'm descended from the Chiefly Grant clan from Glenmoriston, Scotland. I would love for my research into my African ancestors to be as easy as the East Indian research that I've done, but that's not so. BMD records need to be ordered from the registrar at the main post office in Georgetown, and if they are successful in finding your person, then you're contacted to collect your certificate. Gone are the days when the registry let researchers have access to the books due to them being manhandled. You need to know the mother's name and location of birth to hope for a successful outcome. Civil registration started in 1865, so anything before that time, you have to go to the archives to search their books. Let's look at the process by which you may search for your East Indian ancestors. I've managed to locate my mother's maternal grandfather and his family, but not my mother's paternal grandmother, so the outcome isn't always successful. So first you need to have their birth details. With this, you'll be able to look in the Register of Births to Immigrants book. This book states the following information that will help to advance your research. Each child is given a number, and it will state their parents and their numbers. If their parents were born in Guyana, under SHIP it will state CR, which means their birth will be listed in the Creole Register. The writing in red under their names will be their marriage divorce information, which you can use to order their marriage certificate at the registry. You must then search for their parents' birth. Until you find a birth registration with the SHIP's name listed in that section, this will indicate that their parent was an indentured servant. You can now look for the book which holds the SHIP registers. You will identify your person by their allocated number, which is helpful as many have the same name, and at the time of indenture, they did not use surnames. If your person immigrated as a child, you will need to search the SHIP for their parent or parents. So how were surnames acquired? With my two-time great-grandfathers, they used their names as the family surname and chose an English first name. This makes it difficult to keep track of siblings, as it's likely that they all chose different surnames. The SHIP register will list the following information: father's name, caste, bodily marks, location on arrival in colony, receipt of bounty, which will show if they indentured again after the initial period, remarks which state if they returned to India. If by chance your ancestors were one of the later arrivals, which usually seem to have been from Calcutta, they would have also received an immigration certificate of health. In Trinidad, their certificates also have photographs on them. So where to now? The next stop was literally a pit stop. As I arrived, I had to rush into town to obtain some birth certificates before the registry closed. After Trinidad, I should have been more mindful of what was to come. Please take heed, as my mistakes should be to your benefit. Once again, you have to prove your connection with the person who you're ordering the certificate for. It doesn't matter if they're alive or deceased. If it is a grandparent, you'll need your parent's birth certificate stating who their parent was. Researchers, if you're on island, before you go to the registrar, please go to the post office in town to buy stamps to purchase your certificates, as they do not accept cash in their office. Next day, I went to the National Archives. It's a tiny office inside of a government building, so please contact them in advance and make an appointment. The archives team will sit with you and try to help you access the documents. We searched extensively, but all to no avail. I could not definitively state that anyone that we found were indeed the right person, but we seemed to be heading in the right direction. I, however, needed to get to the airport, so I have to go put this research aside for now. Next stop. This stop highlighted something to me that may sometimes be overlooked while researching. That thing is what I call the human archive, also known as oral history. Fiona claimed that she lacked knowledge of her family, but every time we bumped into a family member on the street, I would have to take out my notepad to write notes. They would jog each other's memories about family members and tell me interesting stories. Sometimes oral history needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, and that is where genealogical methodology of making sure all your facts are sourced comes in. Use oral history like a compass to a destination. Now, this is for all islands, not just Antigua. I beg all government agencies, please update your website or social media with your opening days, times and contact information. When people are visiting your island, it helps to be able to plan when you know those facts. First day, we went to the registry to order some certificates. This time I was with a direct descendant, so there was no issue to order what we needed. But as I'm writing this, the registry still have not been in contact with us to let us know what the outcome of our search was. The archives were undergoing refurbishment when I attended, so please make sure you email them to make an appointment. As I was researching the Southwell family and was still waiting for answers from the registry, I used the archive's Wills and Deeds Register search guide online to find anything that may be relevant. Once you've located the documents online, the archive staff will then retrieve the items. I was able to access the will of Rebecca Southwell, dated the 21st of July 1815. Her first statement was to give absolute freedom to her Negro woman slave named Hetty. It must be stated that even though it may be the express wish that your executors manumit an enslaved person upon your death, it doesn't always happen. Rebecca also expressed that the house that she occupied be given to her grandson, Mr. William Allenby, at present in Barbados, and the land occupied by her daughter Elise should be given to her. As I stated before about manumissions not being executed as suspected, this deed poll for Sir James Edwards Colebrook was to manumit a mulatto woman slave named Polly Symes and her 4 musty children named George Samuel, William and Henry Symes Bladen. The fee for the manumission cost £200 and was paid for by George Samuel Bladen, planter, on the 20th of November 1821. Polly Symes and her 4 children appear on the 1821 slave registers for Lynch's estate, with her youngest child, Henry Symes Bladen, stated to be 1 month old. The blog Sugar Mill states that on April 2nd, 1826, the fee for £1, 16 shillings, was paid at the Register General's for the manumission of Polly's 4 sons. I have not seen the original paperwork to accompany this to understand why the delay occurred. I have, however, seen the death certificate of Henry Symes Bladen in 1858, 3 years before his father passed, which states his profession as a schoolmaster. It's quite clear that after his emancipation that he acquired some level of high professional standing prior to his death. Once again, it's time to go. When on a normal holiday, going to an island celebrating their Independence Day could be the highlight of your trip. But having left one island on the brink of celebrating their Independence Day to land in another one that has 2 days for their independence put a little bit of a spanner in the works for me. As such, I was not able to visit the registry division while in Dominica. I did, however, get to see their military parade. I don't think that is as helpful though. The archives are located on the top floor of the National Documentation Centre. Their website has a list of all that they have accessible for researchers, along with an extensive in-house search guide. I've chosen to highlight the Register of Manumissions, which dates from 1796 to 1834. The manumissions process would either take place within the colony or in England upon payment to the public treasury. Manumission is the act by which the enslaved are granted freedom by those legally classed as their enslavers. I've stated it this way as I'm going to give 2 different examples of manumissions. The first example was carried out on the 3rd of May 1834 by Charles Leatham, acting executor for Elizabeth Jeanette, a widow late of this island. In her last will and testament dating 1829, she directed that Anna, Andriane, Fanny, Desiree, Dominique, Carolus, Emily, Caroline and Amadee be manumitted. I tried to access the 1829 will of Elizabeth Jeanette, but this was deemed to be too fragile to use by the archive. As this occurred just prior to the abolition of slavery in August 1834, it would be an idea to compare the 1832-1834 returns for the slave registers to try to locate these people. When researching the Caribbean, try to match multiple colonial documents to find out more about the lives of the enslaved. The second example was a manumission of an enslaved boy of 14 years named Benjamin Pauline Laguerre. He received his freedom in 1806 by Venus Laguerre, a free Negro woman in the island of Dominica. Venus was also the mother of Benjamin. It would take further research to find out how she became free and also how she became the owner of her son. These are the intricacies of Caribbean research that expand it beyond just genealogical research. There is a lot to be unpacked while seeking to further your knowledge. Now, time for my next flight. Any guesses for our next stop? From Argyle International Airport, I made my way straight to town. I stayed at Cobblestone Inn, which was within walking distance to not only the registry, but also to the National Archives. Time as usual was limited, so I headed straight to the registry. BMD forms are all on the right as you enter the office. Remember to say good day as you enter. Fill in your forms and take them to the counter to pay. If you want a marriage certificate, it needs to be certified by a justice of the peace. Ask at the counter and they will direct you to someone in-house. Once you've been to the counter and paid, you just need to sit a little while and wait for an officer to call you to collect your certificate. If, however, you do not have full details for the person you're searching for, or do not have the necessary documents to facilitate receipt of a birth certificate, You can then access the search room. Pay $5 and you can search the books yourself and record the information found. This is a bit more tedious as a lot of the children were registered without a first name. Next day was spent at the National Archives, where I was allowed to access a computer which has digitized copies of baptism records from 1765 to 1842. In the main room, there are search aids and folders on a bookcase, which can help direct you to which items you want to request. I chose to look at the Register of African Immigrants, as I was quite interested to find out who they were. I knew that the apprenticeship period for enslaved Africans ended on August 1st, 1838, and this book was dated for 1859. I had it confirmed by the archivist that after the apprenticeship period that ended in 1838, East Indians, then Portuguese, were indentured in St. Vincent. Then there was a further indentureship period for Africans who were introduced to the colony from Africa. These are the people who are registered in this book. I also looked at their register of immigrants from India. I don't need to explain how this works, as I've spoken about them in Trinidad and Guyana. The only thing I will say is that the Guyanese ones seem more accessible due to there being a direct correlation with the ancestors born in the colony and those who were indentured. Their deeds, wills and power of attorney books can be accessed online through the British Library EAP section. I will, however, highlight how deeds can be very informative for your research. They can disclose family relationships, they can include wills, they can also state neighbours who may also have familiar ties to those stated. Quick highlight of this indenture dated the 10th of March 1838 between William Rose Scott, planter, and Walter Scott, master mariner, both of St. Vincent. They both inherited a quarter of a plantation by the name of Spring Estate in Beckway, along with Jacob Rose Tate and Thomas Scott from William Rose. Jacob and Thomas both died, leaving William and Walter as joint tenants. This indenture lists their neighbours, what the property entailed, and also gave a list of the 152 apprenticed labourers living and attached to the estate. As you can see by the date, this is after the abolition of slavery and near the end of the indentureship period. So there was no formal list of people working on these estates since the 1834 slave registers. If your family member had been attached to this estate, it will enable you to see what happened to them during that time. Once again, it's time to go, and this is my last stop. Yes, I'm finally going home. I wasn't born here, but I was definitely raised here. My parents live here, my school friends are here. Barbados is where I go just to get away and breathe. When I did my genealogy masters, my dissertation was based on Barbados, and I became a regular at the archives while I was writing it. So like most people, I was devastated to hear the National Archives experienced a fire due to it being hit by lightning in June 2024. This fire left one of the buildings gutted. The archives have since reopened, but the extent of the loss became evident to me when I started requesting records that no longer exist. This presentation was to showcase the records that can be used for family history research, but I feel that I should discuss a record set that was a victim of the fire. This record set is known as inventories. The example in the visual demonstrates what is usually listed in such a document. Inventories contain the forensic examination of all items of value that were personally owned. Enslaved people were extremely valuable at that time, which is evident when you see the monetary value attached to them compared to household items. Inventories were used when someone needed access to money, as in they were applying for a mortgage. In such cases, people were very precise with their valuations and their extent of ownership. When I research a topic, I try to bring forth those who tend to be hidden, such as women. Coverture meant that a married woman did not own anything in her own right, as that was assumed by her husband. Her family could place provisions on the property given in a document known as a marriage settlement. Law attempts to make women powerless, but I like to think of them more as hidden or discreet in their position. Deeds may sound quite boring, but these books hold extensive details. Indentures, wills, manumissions, gifts, transfers, and mortgages all exist within those pages. Women can be seen within them, their wishes, their possessions, their financial power. In the indenture of 1820 between Alexander Scott and John Rycroft Best, it shows how Scott came to be the owner of 2 sugar houses in St. Philip known as Wiltshire's and Bailey's. These properties had been bequeathed to Scott's wife Anna Maria prior to their marriage, by her Uncle John Wiltshire. Anna Maria's mother, Mrs. Margaret Elcock, and her sister Margaret were not included in the ownership of these properties. Her mother, Margaret, however, had no reason to feel slighted, as she would be in receipt of an annuity of £800. This sum of money is equivalent to £98,808 in today's money. Following the female line can be quite advantageous in gaining further knowledge in your research. Well, my time is up and this has been fun, but it's time to go home. Many people who have lived or travelled to their ancestral homes often leave with a heavy heart. For those who are part of the Caribbean diaspora, I need to encourage you to come home and find out about the lives of those who share your DNA. To the governments of these islands, we can only hope that with increased use and demand on your archives, it will encourage you to invest in retaining the documentary proof that helps us all find our sense of self, as without that, who are we? So till next time, let's stay strong as one Caribbean.